Well, good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous et toutes. C'est un grand plaisir d'être ici avec vous. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. And Börje, welcome to Toronto. And as I'm told, welcome back to Toronto.
Very much so. Well, it's great to be back, and thanks for having me back, actually, I would say. But c'est un plaisir pour moi d'être ici à Toronto. Oui, je parle un peu français, mais petit peu, and pas bien. So I switched to English, or I could go for Swedish, maybe. But it's great to be in Toronto, just to make it a bit, why it's actually easier to come to Toronto as well. And there used to be a Swedish hockey player, Börje Salming, and he made a very strong impression on me as a kid growing up. But that's why in Toronto, very often my name can be pronounced. So it feels extra special to come to Toronto.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a very large fan base in Toronto for Börje Salming, who played here, I think, for just under 2 decades.
I think
there was a very big event organized for him where he did the honorary puck drop just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he unfortunately got Lou Gehrig disease and passed away quite recently, but he's such an icon in Sweden as well. And why he is because of Canada Cup. I think it was like 76 or something, where he got so many applause when he entered the arena in Toronto that everybody in Sweden would always, after that, cheer for Toronto Maple Leafs, right?
Well, you know, Toronto Maple Leafs actually have a deep-rooted history in having brought on a number of very strong Swedes as hockey players. So we go pretty far and pretty deep. And every conversation in Toronto is a good conversation that starts with hockey, of course. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, while I'm sure that many in the room are very familiar with Ericsson, for those of you who are less so, I just thought I'd share a few very quick facts on the company. So Ericsson is a leading provider of network connectivity solutions and a recognized leader in 5G. You have a presence in over 180 countries, incredibly global in your presence. You employ over 100,000 people. And at the core of your strategy is the digitizing of enterprise and society. And speaking of which, you also have a very large presence here in Canada, long-standing presence. You're the backbone of our 5G network with many relationships in telecom and academia. So I think Canada is a great place to start the conversation.
Agreed.
How important are your Canadian operations in the context of your global setup, and why invest in Canada?
It's very important, actually. And as you said, we've been 70 years. I think we might even be older than Tom Hortons, right? So and we probably touch as many on a daily basis as they do. I think of Canada, we probably touch 60% of Canadians daily that actually will use our networks or the network equipment we provide. And that's, of course, important. But the real importance of Canada for us is actually on the R&D side. So we have a large presence in a couple of sites in Canada, most important being Ottawa. But there we have a large part of our leading R&D on what we call Cloud RAN. It's the future architecture, future programmable networks. It's actually led out of our site in Ottawa. So we are, for us, Canada has as a premier position. And of course, we work in the ecosystem, so we have collaborations with universities. We work with the government as well. So for us, this is it ranks as clearly the biggest site in North America, but it punches above that because it's critical for our long-term roadmaps.
Well, it's great to hear about the importance of your Canadian setup, of course, and the engagement with academia. Now, foreign direct investment is important for a number of reasons, including the continued advancement of technological innovation. And I know you made a very big announcement last year here in Canada. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. We made an announcement last year of about $500 million to be invested in our R&D sites. Of course, that when we talk about the battery factory, you can talk about billions of dollars. But I actually think the R&D investments from a country point of view is meaningful. So for us, the $500 million is a big commitment. So we are going to train and hire several hundred R&D engineers into the advanced fields. And we're talking here 5G advanced into 6G. We're talking how to deploy AI in the networks. We can talk more about that. How to cloudify the networks. All of these areas are where Canada is a front runner. So for us, it's a very good support that we got from the Canadian government to actually make those investments.
Well, it's very impressive to hear your investment made and announced last year. And look, your commitment to R&D and Canadian talent is a win-win all around.
That's a strong point. So Canada, to be honest, I mean, what do we see? Why is Canada central? The talent base here is very strong. It's an engineering talent base as well, entrepreneurial, innovative. So for us, it's very easy to justify the investments just because of the access to talent. So that's important. The second part is the ecosystem. You're creating I would call it a tech ecosystem that's a bit different. I think that's also very important. You see, well, you had the Nobel laureate in AI just announced a few days ago. So I think when you look at leading areas, Canada is very often coming at the forefront. And that's what we try to benefit from. So we're kind of piggybacking a bit, you could say, on the success of Canada. So I think for us, it's very, I'm actually surprised not more companies would make Canada a hub for R&D in that sense.
Well, it's clear it was a very important announcement for Ericson as well as for Canada as well. Now, Minister Champagne, who I believe was there with you when you made the announcement, he was here with us yesterday, and as part of his talk, he referred to the 4Ds of the world, and you wouldn't be surprised that one of the Ds was and is digitalization. So let's move to the future of digitalization. At Ericsson, your ambition is to lead in an open world. How do you see the digital future, and what are the key areas that Ericsson is focused on? And it would be great to hear your view on where mobile connectivity is going in the next 5 to 10 years.
Now you lost 25 minutes of time. The way I think about the world digital, and we often think of technology, it used to be a sector in the economy. It's no longer a sector in the economy. Digital touches upon everything. It's horizontal. Whether you're in banking, it's about technology.
Yeah.
Or if you're in automotive, it's about technology. Or if you're in, you can take, if you're in retail, it's about technology as well. So across the board, technology cuts into every sector. And when we talk about digital, it's also a bit different because digital is typically a platform. So it consists of many parts, but think about it as connectivity is one horizontal layer in a digital stack. But so is cloud, so is compute, so is kind of certain applications. They're going to span across industry sectors, right? And I think we're only at the beginning of a journey here where we're going to digitalize the world. We often, when you talk about use cases, you often get to think about consumer use cases. The consumer was very early at digitalizing. So today, I don't know how many out here, but at least myself, I don't have a DVD player at home anymore. I don't have a photo album. Except when the kids graduate or when they were born, or I guess when they get married at some point in time. So, but you don't have a photo album anymore. All of that is on one single or accessible through one device, right? It's often your cell phone. So you use the cell phone as a camera, you use it to listen to music, you use it to watch TV. All of that is digitalizing the consumer on top of a mobile network. But the interesting thing here is that it's the same with enterprises. They're soon going to start digitalizing on top of mobile connectivity. So think about, you can have many type of use cases. Think about in a mining setting. When you have a blast in a mine, you have to let it sit for a while before you can send in your workers to actually break something and get some minerals out. What you actually can do here is you connect the mine, you can make it fully connected, leveraging 5G, and then you can remotely control drones to go in early and detect if there are dangerous gases, if there are any cracks that could hurt or create dangers. So you can actually improve productivity quite dramatically in the mine by actually working in the mine, even though it can be a dangerous environment, right? You have a truck that you can remotely control in there. So you have many type of use cases that we think about. Our problem is, or opportunity, whatever you say, but is that the connectivity aspect is so small and very often taken for granted. But if you remove connectivity, you cannot do the other parts. Because running a big fiber in the mine a kilometer down into the earth is going to be simply not practical. And it's going to break, so it doesn't provide you with reliability. But radio waves actually can propagate. So therefore, I think, yeah, we're sometimes underappreciated. I think most of the time you feel that way in every industry, by the way. But I'm still going to make the case that we are a little bit more than the rest of you, because I think connectivity is such that when you have it, you don't think about it. It's when you don't have it you think about it, and that's different from any other industries, right? So that's why I think here is a special case where connectivity and digitalization are so tightly linked, but we still don't think about it.
You raised a very good point then in terms of the importance of ensuring that there is connectivity and access to connectivity for everyone. And to make sure that given the importance of digitalization and given the impact and positive impact it can have on economic growth that we'll get to in a moment, to make sure that no one is left behind. Yeah. How do you think Canada is doing when it comes to future digitalization?
I actually think Canada is relatively well positioned. If you look at the latest standard, it's called 5G standalone, and it allows you to do many type of capabilities from the network. Call it ultra low latency, etc. Here, Canada has it's rolled out with all the major carriers here in Canada. It's pretty unique compared to the rest of the world. So I think that is quite good. You have good coverage. I would say, arriving in Canada is one of the few places where you can have a video call from the airport to city center that's uninterrupted. So from a digital infrastructure point of view, Canada is well positioned, I would say. And this is, of course, thanks to, in reality, the operators investing a lot of money in the digital infrastructure, where there is a in other parts of the world, I should say, actually operators are not healthy. So the operators do not earn enough money to invest in the network. So what happens? You get the network you deserve. You get low consumer prices short term, but you get operators who cannot afford to invest in the infrastructure. So if you land in a European capital, I would say almost anyone, including Stockholm, by the way, you cannot have a video call from the airport to city center. It will not give you the continuous coverage. Europe used to be a leader, but it has destroyed the digital infrastructure by focusing on the short-term consumer prices. And that's what I think there is it's a political regulatory appeal to try to drive down short-term price to the consumer, but that comes at the expense of long-term investments in the network.
Which I'm sure are very much needed, given that there are other enabling technologies such as AI and cloud that, of course, build upon the mobile connectivity. Well, I'm very happy to hear your comment that Canada is on the right track in doing well in this regards.
It's very good. Now it's just to keep it.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Now, this conference's tagline is Scaling for a Sustainable Future. So I think it's very important for us to touch on how mobile connectivity can help to combat climate change. What is it that Ericsson is focused on here?
So a couple of things. First of all, of course, we need to do what we can on our side. So we have a commitment to be net carbon neutral by 2040, which we're of course set to do. That includes, of course, working mostly through technology to drive down energy consumption in our products. So we invest quite heavily there. And you know, you think about it, our data traffic in the networks doubles about every 18 to 24 months. So that's going to create carbon by itself. But if we can break that energy curve and start to get down the energy consumption, that's going to help us reaching our goals. So we're investing heavily in R&D on that side. But what's really exciting is digital technologies. And I think mobile infrastructure here is a key enabler for the whole world. So think about the digital industry is about 1.5% of global carbon emissions. But if we properly automate industrial processes, logistics chains, increase asset utilization, we can save 15 to 20% of the carbon footprint of the world. And I think this is a debate often forgotten when we talk about AI. We talk about AI and say energy consumption is going to be so big. Yep, it's true for learning models, etc. But we haven't factored in how much energy it's going to save when properly integrated and automated processes. It's the same thing for us. We sometimes think only what we create, but the savings we enable are not factored in. So I think from a country point of view and continent point of view, again, leveraging digital technologies is the key way to attack climate or carbon emissions.
Well, look, moving towards net zero and ultimately achieving it at a company level, at a country level, is existentially important to all of us. And it's very clear that it's going to require many constituents and stakeholders to get there. I like how you touched on the important role of enablers and the need for collaboration. And here it's important to think of suppliers, industries, other industries, policymakers, and listen, of course, the finance sector as well. I think we all have a very important role to play in that regard. Well, we started to touch on enterprise digitalization a bit, and I'd like to go back to that because there's a really big element here when it comes to thinking of growth and economic development. So, and I know that you're very passionate about this part of the story. So as more and more enterprises are digitalizing, what do you think that brings on the growth and economic development side?
I think it's a massive benefit that we're waiting to really reap here. So if you think about, and why do we talk about it? Well, you know, we've had connected factories for some time, but they're typically connected with Wi-Fi. Honestly, Wi-Fi is the best effort technology. You cannot rely on that for an industrial process. So for an industrial process, you need secure, always available and flexible connectivity. That's exactly what the cellular technology is built for. So if you think about factory automation, you know, think about digital twins, think about fully inline image processing, think about self-guided vehicles in a factory setting, etc. That's where we start to see use cases on. And most factories around the world would typically have a couple of different networks in the plant. They would have a Wi-Fi network. They would probably have something that would, you know, whether it's fiber or Cat6 cables going to the machines, and they would have a positioning network. As a matter of fact, a 5G network can collapse that into one. So we can provide the connectivity to the equipment. We can provide the connectivity to the individuals, and we can provide the extra features like positioning in a factory in a 3D environment. So when we look at, we have a factory in Louisville, Texas, just outside of Dallas, that produces 5G equipment for North America. There we have implemented quite a lot of digital technologies. And what we see is we have twice the labor productivity compared to other plants. We use, you know, about 3/4 less of energy compared to other plants, much less wastewater consumption. So when you look at that, it becomes Yeah, it becomes an automatic factory, but it also becomes a green factory because we actually use less energy. So we're quite excited what you can do. Think about an office building. Today, most working in an office building, you would have your laptop. You're probably connected to a Wi-Fi in the office. That Wi-Fi costs a lot of money. You're going to build out, access points. You're going to pull cables up to the access points. You're going to pull electric power, etc. And you still have a capacity limitation. So if everyone's on doing some heavy calculation application, is not going to work. So then you hope they go on fiber only. So you have a very inflexible infrastructure. Think about the future office. It's going to be all 5G. You have your laptop fully connected. You open up the laptop, it's automatically connected. It's not connected to the local server necessarily, it's connected to the cloud immediately. So you have your full, much more flexible work environment where it doesn't matter if you're at the customer or at home or in the office. You have the same environment to work in, the same security, the same cyber security on all. And here it's a massive opportunity to, again, digitalize enterprises, reduce costs, don't need a local IT department anymore. So when you think about it, it's massive savings.
Well, that's very exciting. It sounds like at the enterprise level, there's definitely a lot more to come that many in this room can certainly benefit from. But also, broadly speaking, when it comes to opportunities for further economic growth, enterprise digitalization will support that as well. So, as I play back the key messages that you shared with us throughout this conversation today, I feel that Canada is in a solid position to take the most advantage of the strong trend, given that you said we have strong network connectivity in place, strong talents, certainly an ability to attract foreign direct investment, innovate, and yes, we do have our own path to net zero as well. So that's a great message to leave the audience with here today. I have a final question for you as time goes by quickly when you're having a great conversation, which is, what is your number one opportunity and your number one challenge in the near term? We spent quite a bit of time of the conversation in the future. If you bring it to where we are now, what's top of mind for you?
I'm first of all, I'm an optimist. So I'll start out by saying I think technology is a force for good. Of course, there are aspects of technology which we need to think about and how to regulate, etc. So I buy that, including AI. So I'm all in that camp. But technology as a phenomena is actually a force for good for the planet. So I think it's all about how we leverage that, how we capitalize on that. And here I'm hugely optimistic. I think we're going to see the way we work. It always takes a bit longer than an optimist believes. So I will confess to that. But I think 5 to 10 years, we're going to see very different office settings, different factories. We're going to see factories being moved around the world. They will employ less people, but they'll be closer to where the consumer actually sits. So we're going to change the manufacturing footprint of big companies, supply networks, etc. So I think there is benefits of digitalization, I think, are so big for the consumers, for the individuals or citizens in a country, as well as for enterprises. So I'm super optimistic, and that's what we are focused on. How do we realize this? How do we build the use cases leveraging the network? How do we build the new applications on top of the network that allows this future kind of more efficient economy, lower carbon emissions? That's really our opportunity. And maybe my major worry is that we are, not equipped to capitalize on that.
Well, Börje, thank you so much for being with us today and for your insightful discussion.
Thank you.